Welcome to another episode of Nutanix Weekly, one of the many podcasts that we produce here at XenTegra. I'm your host, Phil Sellers, Practice Director for Modern Data Center. And we like to call our podcast here Content with Context. And we do that because we take all the news that's happening out in the industry and bring it here, apply some real world knowledge, apply our experiences and talk about it so that we can go a little deeper and drive a little further. Today's episode is the first post 2025 Nutanix.next episode. So we've got lots of news that came out from the Nutanix.next show last week. And so we're really happy to kind of unpack some of the major announcements and talk through those. I can't talk all by myself. Well, I could, but it'd be really boring. So I've got good guests joining me on the horn today. Chris Calhoun, one of our solutions architects here at XenTegra, former Nutanix SE turned VAR SE. Chris, how are things going today?
Fantastic. Glad to be back from .next and excited about the offerings that were announced and the new technology to share with our customers, because I definitely think that this is a spark and it's something definitely that our customers have been asking for. A little teaser, but definitely anxious to get started with that.
So the biggest question is, I know you were on booth duty and on your feet most of the week. How are your feet doing? Are they fully rested from the weekend, or you going to need to see a podiatrist?
I have two still, and they look like Bigfoot. So definitely need some rest and relaxation at some point.
So yeah, I mean that's conference life in a nutshell, right? You're walking around and you're talking 24/7 during a week like .next. The community reaching out to people, getting to see folks you only maybe get to see 2 or 3 times a year. It's all a great part of it. And that brings me to our next guest, Jirah Cox. Jirah, I say you were holding court on Wednesday. I think you know just about everybody that walked into the hall and was trying to get their badge and stuff ahead of the conference. So, yeah, how was the court of Jirah on Wednesday?
It was great to get to see everybody. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was shocking even to me how high of a percentage of our 5,000 attendees I actually didn't know and was able to make connections with. So kind of surprised even me, but definitely very enjoyable.
Yeah, well, you're definitely notable within the community for Nutanix, and so it's not a shock that you know everybody, but it is really fun to watch you, interact with the community, and so many people respect you, and we appreciate you here on the podcast and everything that you bring to things. We're also
Happy to do it.
We're also
I think it's my seventh .next and easily the best of the 7 I've had the pleasure to attend.
Yeah, 100%. And let's talk about that for just a quick second, because this was definitely a bigger event. There was a lot of interest, a lot of buzz. The overall feeling was really good, and I talked to a lot of excited people. So it was easily the best that I've been to. Now I've only been to 2, so this was only my second.
Still a good trend.
Yep. We're also joined with Ben Rogers. Ben is a enterprise SE for Nutanix based in Charlotte, good friend of XenTegra's, good friend of mine. Ben, you didn't get to make the trip out though, did you?
Well, you almost have to hear the plop plop. Not every employee gets to go to .next, unfortunately. But man, I did feel the buzz through the week though, as I was, Zoom casting both the keynotes of the start morning and the end afternoon, all the special events we had. I mean, there's just a lot of buzz around Nutanix right now. And at that national event, even though I didn't attend, I could still feel the energy coming through, our communication channels, what we're podcasting out. So overall, even though I didn't get attend, I do feel connected, and I do feel like it was a successful event, and a lot of work to be done afterwards, man. We've made a lot of good announcements, and now we need to go back and capitalize on some of those announcements.
That's right. Well, and that plays perfectly into what comes next. We've got a great blog post that we're talking about, perhaps one of the biggest announcements. And it's not necessarily a surprise because it was announced last year at .next, but this year it's generally available. And so we want to dig a little deeper today. But we're reviewing a blog post called Introducing Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure for External Storage. Yep, you heard that right, external storage. The HCI company, Nutanix, is now supporting external storage. And so it's a huge shift. It's been in the makings for a year, but now with this, we officially have support for Dell PowerFlex and Nutanix. And so we're going to delve in and talk a little bit about that. Again, one of the bigger announcements, and we'll save a little teaser for the next episode towards the end of what we're talking about today. But I guess without further ado, Jirah, I'm going to turn it over to you. What's generally available?
Well, it's Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure for External Storage, according to the title there. And to your point, Phil, I wanted to underline one point you made. And there's a huge shout out for Nutanix engineering, because to your point, it's not a small feat to announce a major feature like this and then actually also deliver it in the span of about a year, right? So I've actually had a front row seat to watching engineering develop this, and it's been a major undertaking. Congrats to literally everyone involved delivering this, of course, like you said, to our customers and to our friends with our joint solutions at Dell as well. So with this, yeah, we now have our first supported way to use the Nutanix software stack, but also be able to use external storage that you might already have laying around, right? So traditionally, right, most Nutanix purchases have started off with, hey, you have the opportunity now, right? We would call it an opportunity to purchase, your storage and your compute and your software to integrate it all together, all in one big bang, right?
Mhm.
Which is obviously very doable, and we've got thousands of customers that have done that already. But now we have a way to say, hey, look, just maybe buy the software and perhaps use the compute you have, perhaps use the storage you already have, and be able to make a transition there on existing equipment.
So I would
Yeah,
like to add,
100%.
I would like to add something to this. And I'm going to pay homage to my manager, Tom Powell. When we sit in meetings and we discuss, issues our customers might be having or support cases, one thing Tom really says to us as a team is we're a software company. We're not a hardware company. We got to get our, customers to understand that. So there's been a couple of things that have happened in my career at Nutanix that have really showed me that we're driving on that software sense. One is when we went to NC2 and we were able to put cloud clusters in our cloud providers. Even though the nodes are bare metal and they have, an HCI resemblance, still showing that we're software. This to me, and some of the things that we're coming out with, particularly with attaching the external storage, is really where I see the software play come in. And we are starting to move away from hardware dependency and all that. And so again, homage to Tom, man, he's always saying we're a software company. This step right here definitely goes into that, proving that we are software and that we are not dependent on hardware, and we can be very friendly to different hardware players that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, to Jirah's point, this is PowerFlex. This is the first, and to achieve it in under a year is a huge feat. Absolutely. But it's not the last. And so we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more and talk about where the software abilities really kind of play. But it's not just an engineering thing, right? At the end of the day, we have an opportunity that is presented primarily because of business and finance. The possibility that we're responding to with this announcement, with customer demand, is really generated around financial implications of a competitor. And so Chris, as I think about this, we've had a lot of customer conversations. External storage comes up a lot. And so I'm curious, this being the first, there's always going to be, well, I wish it was X or I wish it was Y. But what do you think customers are thinking? I know it's early. We haven't really had a lot of conversations with them yet, but put back on your customer hat from your days, and I mean, just kind of think about what does this mean to customers?
I think it makes sense, obviously, from a financial perspective, leading with the ability to repurpose and not have to repurchase or even plan for new HCI infrastructure. And that's one of the things in the past that folks have looked for is, okay, I've got to have all of my in a leasing type fashion where they lease their gear every 3 years. You've got to have your timing lined up perfectly for those financial purchases in order to say, okay, I want to repurpose all of these plain XC or x86 servers and move to an HCI model. Well, you don't have to do that as much now in the sense that being able to repurpose and even around mergers and acquisitions, I think that this makes sense too from an organizational standpoint where you have some technical debt that's still at some of the subsidiaries or things like that, where you may now be able to reuse that in architecting a better solution for tomorrow. And instead of having to just purchase new for everything, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've certainly had a lot of customers ask about it in the past, and each customer has their own choice of external storage, and so now comes the hard part of prioritizing those storage platforms of what comes next. I teased it at the top, but as soon as PowerFlex was announced, Nutanix also announced future support for pure storage. So we know what comes next. We don't know what comes third. We don't know what comes fourth. And so that's an unenviable task for the folks at Nutanix to figure out who to support after. But the endorsement for external storage in general and delivering that is a huge step forward. So let's dig in a little bit. And Jirah, I've got a technical question for you. How does this actually work? What did Nutanix choose to do to support PowerFlex?
So what's neat here actually, and the nice thing is we got to run a bunch of sessions about this at .next now, because now that it's GA, we can talk about it. Is like we've always told customers, right? Because the question of external storage has come up for, as you can imagine, years and years with Nutanix and the customers we meet with. And as we get, compared to alternative hypervisors, the answer has been simply AHV doesn't support external storage, right? What's neat is that has not fundamentally changed with this release. We've not taught AHV any new tricks, right? The data path for a VM on AHV remains unchanged. It still targets a CVM. What's different now is the CVM now, instead of running local disks, can now look externally, right? And find today a Dell PowerFlex cluster and send that block IO off to external block IO storage. So today we get there via the Dell connector to do that. To speak PowerFlex the best way is called the SDC, their software connector, right? Talking to the SDS on their side, the software storage stack. So yeah, by embedding that Dell SDC connector into the CVM, we've now taught it, how to find a different storage target there and be able to send VM IO there. So VMs don't notice, right? It's still managing AHV. The look and feel of it is unchanged. All of the standard like NCI, Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure operations around HA, VM provisioning, CRUD operations, building virtual servers out, managing them, live migrating, nothing changes, right? It's all still just AHV VMs talking to CVMs on every node of the cluster to get their job done.
The first time I heard that, I thought, wow, that's smart. Because I think like most technologists, we took what we knew in the past and thought, okay, well, we're going to make HV and iSCSI compatible, operating system, and it's going to be able to talk iSCSI, and that's the world we know. And instead, this is a really smart rethink. Utilizing the CVM preserves a lot of capabilities for value above the hypervisor. So one of the things that we're seeing is support for other Nutanix products because the CVM is intact. And so that I think is the really intelligent part of this. And so for customers listening, you're not going to have to relearn anything. CVM's still there. Just some of the storage functions are changing under the covers, but good old Stargate still in place.
And
Yeah,
that, and
I think engineering made a fantastic call with that decision.
And I think that's really smart of our engineering and development staff to go, we don't need to re-engineer the whole stack. Let's re-engineer what's talking to the storage, which is the CVM. And to me, it makes the product very modular, not only from a purchasing or running position, but just from a maintenance and engineering position. We're able to go on our goodness and go, hey, what pieces of this do we need to play with to make it work with other environments? So I was really thrilled when we were sitting in meetings and they were going, hey, we're going to start doing this, that they basically said, everything you're used to talking about and messaging won't change. The only thing that'll change is where the CVM, what it's talking to.
Yeah.
Instead of disk, now we're talking to a connector.
Yeah. And realistically, it opens a lot more possibilities, right? Now that you're talking to external storage, the requirements of the individual server nodes changes. Support for server nodes can change in the future. And again, this is a 1.0 release. So, functionality, compatibility is pretty narrow. That will change over time as the product continues releases and future support. Now, one of the things that did also come out here, and Chris and I were digging into this a little bit last week, but there's a new packaging as well. So we're calling it Nutanix Cloud Infrastructure, or NCI Compute. And so this is a completely new package. We've had NCI Starter, Pro, and Ultimate for traditional HCI stacks for a long time. But the way you're coming to market with this external storage support required a new set of SKUs. And so we've got NCI Compute. Jirah, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And what does that mean from a purchasing or procurement standpoint?
Honestly, it's still pretty simple. It's still just NCI. It's just the one that is designed that it's really a foundation time choice. So when you're provisioning your bare metal servers, right, to build Nutanix clusters, um, there's a checkbox in there where you can tell the cluster this is going to be an external storage cluster, and that's about it. The rest of the foundation process looks the same. Cluster creation looks the same, and then once you're running your cluster, you tell it where to go find the PowerFlex manager and make a connection over there, and then you're basically done. So it's actually like 99.999% the same as traditional NCI, just with a very, very major change under the hood.
Yeah. Now, there are still editions, right? So there's a starter edition and a pro and an ultimate edition of NCIC or NCI Compute. Is that right? Or do I have that wrong?
You're a little ahead of me. I actually haven't looked at the quoting system yet. That does sound correct, right?
Okay.
That because all the goodness of NCI still applies, right? So the reasons why you want to look at using things like Flow network security, right, for microsegmentation, using Flow VPCs for SDN routing and overlays, all that still applies here, right? This is still the same NCI stack. So yes, absolutely, the value of things like Pro, things like Ultimate, all still applies.
So then the next question for me then becomes, okay, we've preserved everything. We still have the additions we're somewhat familiar with their capabilities. We have, preserved the CVM. So I don't know Dell PowerFlex. So what do I need to know about that and what's compatible? Let's do PowerFlex 101 real quick.
That's a great question. I didn't bring the PowerFlex 101 collateral with me here. PowerFlex is a software-defined storage solution, right, in the Dell family. Back in the day, right, the Scale IO technology,
Mhm.
where so it's going to run on traditional, kind of x86 servers that are branded as PowerFlex nodes.
Mm.
Run the PowerFlex software, of course, that creates an aggregate, storage cluster that we can then use. I mean, the nice thing is if this solution is interesting to you, and the solution's for you, you probably already own the PowerFlex that you need to do it, right? So, I don't think it needs to be a the tech marketing deep dive on what is PowerFlex, because if you're interested in this, you probably already have one in your nearest data center.
Yeah. But there are two different types of nodes, right? So there's storage nodes, and then there's the compute only nodes. And so from a certification standpoint, we do have the compute nodes that can be used with Nutanix AHV, with AOS. Those will be compatible with other servers maybe coming in the future, but we do have the support for using those. What was it? PowerFlex compute nodes, I think, is the official
Compute
term
nodes.
for it. Yeah. So that's super helpful, right? And again, to one of the core things you were talking about, Chris, you get that reuse. I think customers have been really looking for. So existing PowerFlex today would be basically we would be replacing VMware as the hypervisor on those compute nodes to then connect it to the PowerFlex storage, which is really, I think, the core of what a lot of customers are looking for. They're looking for that drop-in replacement for VMware. So, Ben, as you're talking with folks, I mean, how often is that their end goal? I guess. What are customers saying to you?
Oh yeah, I mean the few customers that I am talking to this about, what they ideally want to do is do all this within PowerFlex. They want to have their VMware environment, they want to stand up an AHV environment, and they actually want to be able to migrate within their PowerFlex systems. So they see doing an in-place migration on the PowerFlex system, but not having to do it like, you've got to take your cluster that's running ESX and turn it into an AHV cluster. They'll have their ESX clusters and they'll build AHV clusters in their PowerFlex environment, and they'll do the migration within the PowerFlex, which sometimes, keep me honest here, Jirah, sometimes it's just repointing. It's not like really having to refactor any of the zeros and ones. It's just going, now you're here, now you're being pointed over there. So yeah, customers are looking at the flexibility of this. And I think one of the things that kind of needs to be asked is, how did we get here? What kind of brought our hand to the point of looking at this type of technology and expanding our capabilities? And a lot of it is driven by customer response, man. Customers own these units. They're using these units in high demand areas, and they're looking for alternative solutions to run on these environments. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we looked at doing this with Dell first, is that a lot of our customers are saying we would love to have the AHV, Nutanix, NCI, NCM experience on this powerful engine. And so I think that's what brought us to the plate, is customer demand. I think the other question that would be interesting to ask, and Jirah, this is going to fall back on you. I apologize for that, is you ask, I'm a PowerFlex user, what do I need to know about PowerFlex? Jirah, tell us a little bit about the life cycle management, because I have been uh, in some presentations where, life cycle management will change with this type of scenario, but I didn't catch all the details during that. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
So you could say that lifecycle management changes. It's actually probably more accurate to say lifecycle management doesn't change
Okay.
in an unintuitive way, because the whole solution, right, is built for customers that are looking to maintain their existing separate management of storage and then the compute stack, right? And so if you're, already administering a Dell PowerFlex environment, this actually doesn't change that, right? Updates to the PowerFlex side of the solution are still performed by PowerFlex administration and the management. So what's cool there, it's really almost it's like a common joke that I use around with Nutanix, right? You get the opportunity to hyperconverge your org chart as well, right? The server guys, the compute guys, the virtualization guys. With this, new solution, right? We now have an opportunity where you are not required to do that, right? You are not required to hyperconverge your storage teams into the broader administration set. So the parts of it that we build, right? The AHV, the AOS, the NCI, Prism Central, all that, nothing changes, right? Our LCM engine still covers all of that. The part that you're already used to patching with PowerFlex and their administration consoles also doesn't change for you. They still manage all of that.
And I think that's an interesting point too. We were having some discussions last week. This isn't 3-tier. That may shock people when they hear that the first time, but everyone that I talked with is saying this is more of a 2-tier solution than 3-tier because of the point that you're making there, Jirah, that everything's still automated. It's still busting silos. It's still bringing teams together, just like original Nutanix HCI. The goal is to continue with simplified operations that's turnkey and helping customers succeed without a dedicated fiber channel network. That a lot of customers traditionally have with their 3-tier architecture. So I think that is a huge advantage for customers too, because your learning curve's going to continue to be low.
Sure. Yeah, we're requiring less procedural change, right? Less HCI can be a wonderful disruption. It can be fantastic, right? From an efficiency and new processes and acting like a cloud provider standpoint. Not everyone is looking to go on that journey as quickly as possible, right? So it's wonderful to be able to kind of build a bigger tent and invite more people to be in the Nutanix family, wherever they are.
Yeah, I think this is a great springing point, right? As we've talked about before, GA of this came out, the next platform's already announced being Pure Storage. Again, the CVM continues to play that role. We can kind of see a strategy that Nutanix is going to undertake, and I agree with Ben. It's a very intuitive approach to maintain the CVM because the rest of your value proposition stays intact. You've got all of the other higher level features that continue to work because the CVM's there. Yeah, this is cool. We're starting to get to see things under the covers for the first time as external storage comes into play, and customer choice is still at the forefront. I think that's the underlying thing. We talk a lot about choice here on this podcast because it seems like it's at every level, and this is just another avenue for customer choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's one of the most encouraging parts to me for sure is just that it's been great to watch the customer demand for this, right? The frequent customer asks of, "Oh, I just wish you guys could X or Y or Z." It would make our evaluation a lot different, and then for engineering to deliver that is a really cool cycle to be a part of.
And I think to the point that you're making, Jirah, and you said it earlier, is, hey, 99.9% being the same. Nutanix has always prided itself on taking difficult technical solutions and making it simple to the customer. And that's really back to customer choice, customer demand. And that's what we're seeing here. It's, hey, we had an avenue where customers need to utilize some of that existing infrastructure. And how can we continue? And to me, you congratulated the engineering team because and Ben, you mentioned it too, the path forward seems to be very, very foundational, laid out, and intelligently derived architected so that you could then back in additional storage types. That's kind of what Philip was talking about of, hey, this being version 1.0, but this leads itself into questions about, okay, what's the next external storage? Well, we know it's Pure. What's the next after that? So basically, you'll have those opportunities to utilize your existing infrastructure. And again, it's making difficult technical architecture seem simple to the customer with that customer choice.
Now,
Yeah.
that being said, we've got to give huge kudos to the engineering staff of Nutanix and the engineering staff of Dell coming together, figuring out how to make this work. It's very simple to sit here and talk about it in a podcast amongst us. It's more difficult when you got to get into the lab and whiteboard this out and test and then, see what the results of our tests. So to both companies, Nutanix and Dell, good job on the engineering side bringing this to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Current compatibility is PowerFlex. You'll be able to buy NCP on PowerFlex. You can also buy NCP on Dell XC Plus. So that's been the Nutanix node type for a long time, running HCI. So two different types of hardware you can get from Dell. And then I do want to return back to the packaging for just a minute because I was thinking about this after attending some sessions, but Broadcom's made lots of changes, right? And now customers can't get what they were really looking for, which is a hypervisor solution. And for Nutanix, the new NCI Compute version starter, it's about as close to Enterprise Plus as anything on the market. And so this really gives a compelling alternative moving forward for Broadcom customers. If you're looking for something to replace Enterprise Plus and you don't necessarily need all of those other things, this is a play. And so just like Nutanix addressed the need with NCI Edge, NCI Compute's coming along to address another need in the marketplace. So I don't want that to fall off the radar either, because I think there's a lot of value for customers in the small to medium sector who may not be looking at everything. But again, Nutanix also offers all these other services on top that could be valuable, files, for instance. So it's a great entry point again for users with external storage. Again, today PowerFlex. So I know it's pointed further up the stack, but as time wears on, we're looking at a potential game changer in the competition and alternatives for VMware. So that I think is something to look forward to in version 2, version 3 of external storage support. With that said, there's a lot of technical details that I know we need to get into the weeds with, that all of us are still learning, in light of this being a newer announcement. But if this is something that sounds good to you from a PowerFlex customer perspective, we'd love to go deeper. Definitely reach out. Our teams are collectively ready to talk about it and ready to dive deeper into what this could mean in your environment. On behalf of everybody on the podcast, Jirah, Chris, and Ben, I want to say thanks for spending a little time with us this afternoon. It's been fun going to Nutanix.next, getting to bring back the news. This is one of many topics we're going to start unpacking. I think Jirah sent us a link with the top 10 announcements, and that's not exhaustive. There was so much news last week. So we're going to be slowly getting this out week after week and talking about all the exciting things that are on the horizon. So on behalf of everyone, thanks for listening. We will catch you in the next episode, but have a great day in the meantime.